Okay, let's dive right into this explainer where we're going to peel back the incredibly complex layers of the recent extraterrestrial disclosure narratives straight from the source material. I mean, it feels like everywhere you look these days, the conversation about non-human intelligence is just exploding, right? But as we dig into the actual documents, the whistleblower testimonies, and these deep insider accounts, we find a story that is far stranger and honestly way more profound than anything you're going to catch on the evening news. We're organizing all this data so it's easy to digest, so stick with me. This is going to be a wild ride.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how aerospace pioneer Wernher von Braun reportedly predicted a manufactured cosmic threat decades ago. In the years right before his death, he allegedly confided in his colleague Dr. Carol Rosen, giving her a very precise sequence of events. He warned her that an alien threat would be the absolute final card played by the military-industrial complex. Not because the threat was real, mind you, but purely to justify the permanent weaponization of space.
So that brings us to the ultimate question we are unpacking today, as we explore all these documents spanning decades. Are we actually being prepared for genuine cosmic disclosure? Or are we watching the final stages of an elaborate planetary deception, the exact kind of psychological operation von Braun warned us about? Let's jump into our first section. The disclosure wave begins. Because the mainstream conversation right now, it's literally exploding. Just recently, the Pentagon released a new batch of UAP files, 51 new videos. But here's the kicker. The old aliens.gov domain quietly redirects to war.gov/UFO. War.gov. Meanwhile, Hollywood is going all in. We've got Ron James's Accidental Truth next, slated for April 2026. Steven Spielberg's blockbuster Disclosure Day in June 2026. And Ryan Coogler is even producing an X-Files reboot. The cultural groundwork is being laid out heavily and super rapidly. And the core conflict in our sources perfectly captures this tension. The exact same facts are being framed in two totally different ways. The mainstream narrative, the one housed under war.gov, focuses heavily on words like threats and incursions. But when you listen to the military insiders and whistleblowers, totally different story. They suggest these UAPs have actually neutralized nuclear weapons peacefully, kind of like a warning to us. Oh, and they also claim that a lot of these observed craft are actually secretly human-made. Moving right along to our next section, Secrets of the Oval Office. So what do world leaders allegedly know behind closed doors? Well, according to the source material, a multi-decade history of high-level awareness is mapped out here. From von Braun's warnings in the 70s, to a classified Oval Office briefing for Jimmy Carter in 77, to a crazy 1997 report from a Russian head of state, all the way up to a massive consciousness timeline shift projected by remote viewers for the year 2027. It's definitely building up to something. The turning point really seems to revolve around that 1977 event. According to physicist Dr. Eric Davis in the sources, President Jimmy Carter received a highly classified briefing, not just about lights in the sky, but about direct U.S. government contact with non-human intelligence. And the reports indicate that after this briefing, Carter, who remember had campaigned heavily on UFO transparency, was seen visibly shaken, head down at his desk. After that, he went completely silent on the subject for the rest of his presidency. Then you have this absolutely incredible account from Kirsan Ilumizanov. He's a former head of state and was the longtime head of the World Chess Federation. He claims he was actually invited aboard a massive craft from his Moscow apartment back in 1997. And he drew this fascinating comparison. He suggested the 64 squares on a chessboard perfectly mirror the 64 codons of human DNA, representing strategy, balance, and the building blocks of evolution. The beings reportedly told him humanity just wasn't ready for open contact because we're still in our adolescence. Basically, the real test for us is moral maturity, not just advanced technology. Let's shift gears a bit with Section 3, Rethinking the Phenomenon. Okay, so let's dive into this concept of ultra-terrestrials, because it's not all just nuts and bolts spaceships from other galaxies. Some forensic researchers argue we've been looking in completely the wrong direction. The idea here is that these hidden intelligences actually share our planet. They might be descendants of ancient civilizations like Atlantis, or stranded extraterrestrials living in deep subterranean or undersea bases, which honestly would completely explain why they are so hyper-focused on our nuclear weapons and environmental destruction, because they live here too. Going even further into the fringe, we encounter the space critters theory. The sources point to an event in April 2026, where dozens of people over Mississauga, Ontario, witness this giant blue silkworm-shaped object wriggling through the sky. And incredibly, the guy who photographed it claimed he actually saw it in his dreams before it appeared. This fuels the theory that some of these phenomena are living, biological, quantum dimensional entities, and that our collective human imagination might actually dictate how they take physical form. Wild, right? But as we descend even deeper into the source material, we hit an incredibly unsettling question. What if Earth isn't just being visited or shared? What if it's being farmed? Which brings us to Section 4, the cosmic farm hypothesis. All right, we have to talk about loosh. This is a term used in metaphysical circles to describe emotional energy, specifically human misery, fear, and conflict. The theory whispered among whistleblowers is that this energy is cultivated as a consumable resource by non-human entities. Under this hypothesis, our global systems of division, that constant outrage, all that trauma, it's not random. It's intentionally designed to maximize this emotional harvest. So if this farm's mechanism is amplifying outrage and chaos to generate intense energy, what's the solution? Well, the sources suggest that the ultimate human rebellion is choosing emotional sovereignty, choosing calm, coherence, and joy. Because if fear is the crop, then staying grounded and joyful literally starves the system. Whether you take this literally or just as a really powerful metaphor for our modern attention economy, it totally shifts the power right back into your hands. All right, Section 5, the 2027 timeline shift. All these strange threads seem to be converging on a very specific date that researchers and whistleblowers just keep highlighting. Consider the data around this mysterious object designated 3I/Atlas. Officially, it's classified as a comet, right? But the sources say it completely defies celestial mechanics. It has impossible chemical signatures and a 100-kilometer light projection. Classified astrophysicists and remote viewers actually claim it's a mothership housing 5 million Draco reptilians in stasis, and it's reportedly being joined by other huge objects like C/2025 Swan approaching the inner solar system right now. And what ties this directly to humanity? Well, classified testimony suggests that portals at CERN were allegedly used to facilitate direct telepathic contact with the entities on 3I/Atlas. And these entities claim to be gathering star seeds ahead of a massive dimensional shift in 2027. Multiple sources predict 2027 as this major nexus point where human consciousness is going to undergo a massive, multi-dimensional evolution. And finally, our last section, the false flag warning. Because this brings us back to the core conspiracy that ties this whole explainer together, the ultimate deception. Look at this sequence: the Russians, terrorists, third world nations of concern, asteroids, and finally, extraterrestrials. This is von Braun's exact warning from decades ago, a step-by-step roadmap designed to generate the fear necessary to consolidate global control, leading right up to that final manufactured card. And that is the duality of the disclosure we're living through right now. According to the sources, suddenly releasing all this declassified footage is a deception, a carefully managed psychological operation to cultivate fear and justify planetary military control against a hostile threat. But the suppressed truth? Insiders verify that over a century of peaceful contact has been hidden, along with advanced energy tech, all just to protect fossil fuel empires and shadow government structures. Dr. Stephen Greer, who has briefed CIA directors on this stuff, puts it perfectly. He says the government's whole "we don't know what these objects are" framing is just feigned ignorance. The people running these programs know exactly what they are. His sources confirm that many of the terrifying craft being paraded in front of the public are actually human-made, utilizing super-classified anti-gravity tech to stage a false, fear-based narrative. So, as we wrap up this massive rabbit hole, from the Pentagon to the cosmic farm, all the way to 2027, we're left with this. If the alien threat is indeed the final card to be played, will humanity choose fear, or will we evolve into full cosmic awareness? It's the ultimate test of our consciousness, and honestly, we might have to answer that question a lot sooner than we think. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious out there.
You've been listening to the Weaving the Lightnet TLDR. To explore more about any of these topics, visit lightnet.co.uk or listen to the full deep dive podcast episode linked below. Give the video a like, share this episode with others who would appreciate it, and subscribe to join us next week as we continue weaving the web of planetary consciousness together. Stay sovereign.